met him in today at Dollar General. He saw that I was struggling to buy them some clothes. He drove us here to buy us some clothes, and the only reason I went with him because she said his wife was going to...
The voice you just heard was Rain Perrywinkle, a mother in panic, trying to explain the unthinkable. A stranger had offered to help. He said he had a gift card, that he could buy her daughter's clothes, maybe even food. She was struggling, and she wanted to believe him. What happened next would become one of the most disturbing child abduction cases in Florida history, because that man walked out of Walmart holding 8-year-old Cherish Perrywinkle by the hand, and within hours she was gone. This is the story of a predator who should have never been free, and the little girl whose trust cost her everything. Cherish Lily Perrywinkle was born on December 24th, 2004, a Christmas Eve baby, a gift her mother described as nothing short of a miracle. She was the oldest of 3 girls and lived in Jacksonville, Florida, with her mother, Rain Perrywinkle, and her 2 younger half-sisters. She was only 8 years old, but already carried herself with a kind of quiet confidence. Her teachers called her sweet, curious, thoughtful. She loved coloring, stuffed animals, and anything pink. She adored her little sisters and often played the role of protector, taking charge like a second mom. Cherish was the kind of child who didn't just enter a room. She lit it up. She had long brown hair, soft features, and a smile that seemed to stretch from ear to ear when she laughed. But behind the warmth of Cherish's spirit was a home life that was often complicated. Her mother, Rain, had struggled financially for years. The family lived paycheck to paycheck, and the stress of supporting 3 young daughters alone weighed heavily on her. Rain had previously been involved in a custody battle with Cherish's biological father, a fight that drained her emotionally and financially. Despite the difficulties, she did everything she could to keep her children clothed, fed, and loved. On June the 21st, 2013, a Friday, the summer heat in Jacksonville had settled into the pavement. It was just another long day for the Perrywinkle family. Rain had taken the girls out to run errands, not because it was convenient, but because she had no choice. With no childcare and limited transportation, the kids went wherever she went. That evening, Rain brought the girls to a Dollar General store. She was looking for discounted clothes, anything she could afford for her daughters. Money was tight and her options were limited. While browsing the aisles, she was approached by a man. He seemed friendly, kind even. He looked to be in his 50s, wore casual clothing, and had white hair slicked back. He introduced himself and said his name was Don. His real name was Donald James Smith. Smith told Rain that he had a $150 Walmart gift card and that he wanted to help. He said his wife would be meeting them soon and that they could all go together to Walmart and pick out some clothes and food for the girls. Rain, tired and vulnerable, hesitated, but Smith was persuasive. He spoke softly, made promises that seemed just within reach, and presented himself as a good Samaritan. Rain would later say she felt conflicted. A stranger offering help felt too good to be true, but they needed the help. Her daughters had grown out of their clothes. She hadn't eaten all day. The man didn't seem dangerous, and in that moment, all she could think about was giving her girls something better, even if just for one night. She agreed to go with him. At around 10:30 p.m., Donald Smith drove Rain and the 3 girls to a nearby Walmart on Lem Turner Road. Inside, he walked with them aisle to aisle, helping the girls pick out outfits. Cherish, excited and unsuspecting, held up dresses and shoes, asking her mom what looked pretty. Her younger sisters tagged along, laughing and clinging to Rain's side. For a moment, things felt normal. Cherish had picked out an orange dress and a pair of flip-flops, her favorite colors. She wanted to wear them right then and there. Smith said they could buy food after they checked out and told Rain that his wife was on her way to meet them. As time passed, Rain began to feel uneasy. Smith's story didn't quite add up. His wife still hadn't arrived. He kept changing the subject. At 11:15 p.m., just 45 minutes after arriving, Donald Smith leaned down and told Cherish he wanted to take her to the front of the store to buy a McDonald's snack from the fast food counter. Rain, distracted with the other girls and trying to sort through clothing sizes, hesitated, then she said yes. She watched as her oldest daughter walked away with the man, hand in hand. Moments later, she would regret it for the rest of her life. They never came back. It had only been a few minutes. Rain Perrywinkle glanced at the clock on her phone. She was still in the girls' clothing section at the back of the Walmart. The shopping cart held a small pile of clothes and sandals. Her younger daughters were still beside her, but Cherish hadn't returned. She told herself not to worry, not yet. Maybe Donald Smith and Cherish were waiting in line at McDonald's. Maybe they were still deciding, but a tightness began to build in her chest. Something didn't feel right. She walked quickly toward the front of the store. The McDonald's counter was there just beside the entrance, but there was no one in line. The counter was closed. There was no sign of Donald Smith, no sign of Cherish. They were gone. Her heart dropped. Panic took over. She rushed to the store manager and begged for help. She described the man, his white hair, the clothes he was wearing, the name he gave. Store employees tried to search the aisles, hoping maybe the pair had simply wandered. But the longer they looked, the clearer it became. They weren't in the store. They had left. Rain grabbed her phone and dialed 911. The call came in just after 11:23 p.m. A frantic, heartbreaking message from a mother who already knew, deep down, that something was very wrong. Her voice was trembling on the edge of collapse.
Robinson. Hi, I'm at Walmart. I'm in turn. I think my daughter's been taken.
What do you mean?
Taken by a stranger. I can't find her.
Okay, and she was last seen with this man?
Yes, he said he was going to McDonald's and he hasn't been there because the store is closed right now. I had a bad feeling about him.
Okay, how long have you been looking for you? When was the last time you saw your daughter? How long ago?
About half an hour ago.
The dispatcher stayed calm, collected the details, and immediately issued a BOLO, a be-on-the-lookout alert, for a white van and a man named Donald. Rain described him in as much detail as she could. The tattoos, the height, the slicked-back hair. She gave a full description of Cherish, 8 years old, around 4 feet, 8 inches tall, wearing an orange dress and flip-flops, long brown hair, hazel eyes, gentle, trusting. The Jacksonville Sheriff's Office moved quickly. Within the hour, they had secured surveillance footage from inside the store, confirming the moment Donald Smith and Cherish exited together. She was walking beside him, clutching his hand, not resisting, not running, just walking. As the footage spread across law enforcement channels, the truth began to unfold. Donald James Smith was already a registered sex offender, known to authorities for a long history of child exploitation, lewd conduct, and attempted abduction. His record was filled with disturbing details going back decades. He had been released from prison just 3 weeks before meeting Rain and her daughters. He was supposed to be under surveillance. He wasn't. As morning broke on June 22nd, an Amber Alert was officially issued for Cherish Perrywinkle. Her photo, smiling, bright, full of life, was broadcast across every news station in Florida. Patrol units were deployed. Highway alerts lit up with the words, "Missing child, white van, suspect Donald Smith." Rain Perrywinkle, devastated and numb, stayed with her younger daughters while police scrambled to piece together every move Smith had made since leaving Walmart. They were in a race against time, and they knew it, because by the time the Amber Alert went out, Cherish had already been missing for over 6 hours. The search for Cherish Perrywinkle became the top priority for law enforcement across Florida. Within hours of her disappearance, the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, along with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement and the FBI, launched a multi-agency manhunt for Donald James Smith. Smith's name wasn't new to law enforcement. He was a registered sex offender, known to the system, with a history that spanned decades. And yet, he was free. He had been released from prison just 3 weeks before meeting Cherish and her mother. By early morning on June 22nd, 2013, the Amber Alert for Cherish was active. Her face was plastered across news broadcasts and highway signs. Patrol cars flooded the city. Helicopters hovered overhead. Dive teams searched retention ponds. K-9 units combed the woods. Law enforcement knew the clock was ticking, and they feared the worst. At 9:02 a.m., a patrol officer spotted a white Dodge van parked outside a Dollar General, matching the one described in the alert. The vehicle was empty. Nearby, officers found and arrested Donald Smith without resistance. He offered no explanation. He refused to speak. He demanded a lawyer, but Cherish wasn't with him. The only clues came from inside the van. Fast food wrappers, scattered clothing, and one haunting detail, an orange flip-flop, matching the ones Cherish had worn the night before. At nearly the same time, another tip came in. A city utility worker had spotted the van hours earlier, parked behind the Highland Avenue Baptist Church, not far from where Smith was arrested. Investigators rushed to the scene. Behind the church was a wooded drainage ditch, overgrown, muddy, and mostly hidden from view. It was the kind of place you'd only find if you were looking for somewhere to hide something or someone. At 10:30 a.m., officers made the discovery. Face down in shallow water, partially submerged and covered with debris, was the body of an 8-year-old girl. Her arms were bound. Her clothes were gone. Her small frame bore signs of unimaginable violence. It was Cherish Perrywinkle. The autopsy would later reveal what no one wanted to believe. She had been raped, strangled, and severely beaten. Her cause of death was ruled as mechanical asphyxiation. The level of trauma she endured was described as prolonged and intentional. The medical examiner noted it was among the worst cases they had ever seen involving a child. Investigators later uncovered that Smith had used his phone to search for explicit images of young girls shortly before approaching Rain Perrywinkle at Dollar General. This was not random, it was premeditated. He hadn't found Cherish by accident. He had hunted her. News of her death broke within hours. Jacksonville, and much of the nation, was in mourning. Candlelight vigils were held outside the church where she was found. Strangers left flowers, notes, and photos of a smiling, wide-eyed little girl whose life had been cut short by someone who never should have had the chance. For her mother, Rain, there was no peace, only guilt. She blamed herself, not because she had done anything wrong, but because she had made a desperate decision in a desperate moment. She later said, "I knew it felt wrong. I knew something wasn't right, but I was tired. I was broke, and I believed he just wanted to help." The world now knew the truth. He didn't want to help. Donald Smith wanted to destroy. From the moment he was arrested, Donald James Smith faced the full weight of the law. The charges were swift and severe: kidnapping, sexual battery, and first-degree murder of a child under 12. The evidence against him was overwhelming. The surveillance footage, the DNA, the forensic links, the digital search history, and Cherish's lifeless body. The public was outraged. Many demanded to know how a man with Smith's record was even walking free. His criminal history wasn't a mystery. It was well documented and horrifying. He had been convicted of attempted child abduction. He had served time for lewd and lascivious conduct involving minors, and he had violated probation repeatedly. Yet somehow he had slipped through the cracks. And now an 8-year-old girl was dead. Smith's defense team tried to delay the trial. They filed motions, challenged evidence, requested changes of venue, anything to buy time. But the community wanted justice, and so did Cherish's family. After nearly 5 years, in February of 2018, the case went to trial. The courtroom was packed. Rain Perrywinkle sat silently in the front row every day. Her face was hardened by grief. She had lost her daughter in the most horrific way imaginable, and now she had to sit through testimony that would reopen every wound. The prosecution presented the facts, and they did not hold back. They showed the surveillance footage of Cherish walking hand-in-hand with her killer. They read the timeline. They displayed the Google searches found on Smith's phone, searches for preteen rape and 8-year-old girl porn in the hours before he took her. They showed autopsy photos. The deep ligature marks, the bruising, the trauma. The jury sat in stunned silence. In her testimony, Rain told the jury that she had been desperate. She said, "I was poor. I had nothing, and I thought someone was helping me. The defense did not deny that Smith had killed Cherish. They attempted to spare him the death penalty, arguing mental illness, long-term drug abuse, and a traumatic past, but it wasn't enough. After only 15 minutes of deliberation, the jury unanimously recommended the death penalty. On May 3rd, 2018, Donald James Smith was formally sentenced to death. He was also sentenced to 3 life terms for kidnapping and sexual battery. He now sits on Florida's death row at Union Correctional Institution. There was no sense of victory in the courtroom, only a numb relief. Justice, maybe, but not healing. The murder of Cherish Perrywinkle left scars far beyond her family. It sparked national outrage and reignited a long-overdue debate about repeat sex offenders and sentencing reform. Many pointed fingers at the system that allowed Smith, a clearly dangerous predator, to walk free just 3 weeks before Cherish's death. Her case also led to renewed efforts in child protection legislation, as well as improvements to Florida's Amber Alert system, which, though activated quickly, was not fast enough. Rain Perrywinkle has remained largely out of the spotlight since the trial, but when she does speak, it's always in her daughter's name. She has said she will never forgive herself, but more importantly, she will never forgive a system that let this happen. Cherish was buried in a small white coffin covered in flowers. Her sisters, still too young to understand the full scope of what happened, held hands at the service. A photo of her, smiling in that orange dress she never got to wear, sat at the altar. Cherish Perrywinkle was just 8 years old. She wanted a dress, she trusted a stranger, and the world failed her. Cherish Perrywinkle's story is one that's hard to hear, but it's one we have to tell. If this case moved you or made you think about how vulnerable children truly are, please share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more real, in-depth true crime stories like this one. And if you're ready for another case just as shocking, click here to watch it next.